All right, well, good evening, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Don Odells Legends. My name is Art Tipaldi. I'm the editor of Blues Music Magazine. You can check us out at bluesmusicmagazine.com or on our Facebook page. We appreciate your support. We're here tonight with, I guess I can call him a road warrior. He's out there year after year, 32 years with his band. This is Tim Langford. Yes. But better known as Too Slim the Taildraggers.
Slim the Taildraggers.
Welcome to Don Odells Legends now, Tim.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
This is great having you here. Yeah. And I know, for me, this is the first time seeing you because you have always pretty much been based on the West Coast.
Right.
Your trips to the East have been fairly infrequent.
Right.
And we've had a chance maybe to run into each other in Memphis at some of the Blues Music Awards and things like that.
Right.
Is this your 21st album out?
Somewhere in there.
High Desert
I think it's
Heat?
like a 13th studio album.
Yeah,
we got some. I did a couple solo acoustic
albums. Oh, I love
too,
that. We'll talk about that in a minute. But
yeah,
it's interesting that in 32 years you almost have an album every 2 years.
Yeah.
Is that part of the Too Slim and the Taildraggers business plan?
I guess so. Yeah.
Okay.
That's about it. Kind of.
Yeah.
Gotta sell that one, and then get enough money to make the next one.
Right,
So,
yeah. Well, I know that's the Bonamassa business plan. He comes out with a CD.
Well, he comes
year.
out with one every month.
Yeah, I know. Well, he told me the reason he does that is because when you go to a new town, if you're there on a CD they've already talked to you about for the newspaper, they don't want to talk to you.
I know.
I think that's brilliant, yeah. Well, I thought what was interesting to me on this CD is, as a writer, you write so much of your music, but yet you open this CD with a cover of the Chambers Brothers' Time. Why did you do that?
Well, that song been in the back of my mind for like 15 or 20 years. I saw the Chambers Brothers at the Waterfront Blues Festival in Portland. And I was with my friend Alex Sierra, and they whipped into that song, and he turned to me and he goes, "You got to do that song."
Oh, yeah.
And I thought about it ever since. And so our bass player Zach, he's after he joined the band, he's in the band for about a year, and he didn't really say anything about the fact that he was a singer too.
Oh, wow.
And he put something in the stereo in the van one day. We're listening to him. I go, who's that? He's like, "Oh, that's my old band," or something like that. And I'm like, "You're singing."
Yeah. That's great.
So, anyways, I thought he could sing that song really well. So,
very cool.
That was the opportunity. I tried. I was thinking, I'd like trying to sing it myself, but I could never. I practiced it. I could never get the timing right between the vocals.
Yeah.
All this stuff. I was just like,
yeah. You wanted to go over good because it's such an iconic
I know you
song.
can't.
Oh man,
you can't do a bad version.
Right. That's right. Yeah. So with all these CDs you come out with, I always like to think each CD sort of tells a story. What's the story of this particular CD?
Well, I don't know. It's just Zach wrote a few of the songs too, so it's kind of, some of that's some of his, personal life's tale. You know, everybody, all of us in the band, we're all sober now. We all, had our bouts with addiction and stuff. So some of it's, has to do with that and just everyday life. And it wasn't really like trying to come up with a theme or anything on the record. Yeah. But I was just trying to come up with like a kind of a cohesive sound to it. And the last few records, I guess, I've been more focused on kind of, that late 60s blues rock.
Really?
Early 70s blues rock.
Yeah.
And I've listened to it all the time.
Right.
So,
yeah, sure.
I wanted to kind of try to emulate and some of that, because I grew up listening to, that's probably my first records that I had, Cream and, some Jimi Hendrix albums and stuff like that. And then I was really into people like, Robin Trower and
Allman Brothers.
Allman Brothers, they were one of my favorites. I was really into when I was younger in this like Southern rock bands too, like Leonard Skinner and Marshall Tucker Band.
Were you
Wet Willie.
Were you playing a guitar back then when you were into these bands?
I didn't. I started playing guitar in 1974, I think it was, or something like that. So yeah, when I first heard those bands, I wasn't playing guitar.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't start playing guitar. Well, what really inspired me to play guitar was after I saw ZZ Top in it. Live. It was about right after Trace Hombres came out or something like that, and this kind of blew me away. You know, and I was like, oh, I want to do that.
Yeah, yeah. That's like me when the Beatles played Ed Sullivan. I saw the girls screaming. I said to my mom, I want a guitar for Christmas, please.
I know. Well, the Beatles were like my first favorite band. You know, the first record I had was Beatles' second album.
Oh, neat! Wow.
Yeah. So and so I love the Beatles.
Yeah.
And then it was like I had a cousin who Steve Springer, who was a musician, and so I'm always was fascinated by his guitars and stuff like that. He's a bass player for the most part, but he had guitars and basses and stuff, and so I kind of wanted to go grab it and touch it.
Yeah.
And so, but anyway, then I finally, after I, kind of saw that concert and stuff, my buddy down the street had a acoustic guitar, and I asked him if I could borrow it.
Yeah.
And so I got it, and then I was hooked. I just had like, this is what I want to do. I want to play guitar.
Yeah.
I was one of, I didn't fall asleep with it on my lap, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, and
Did you take lessons?
Yeah, I did. I took lessons from. They were all my teachers were jazz guitar players.
Okay.
So
yeah.
I think my first teacher's name was Fritz Hinkle, and then I took lessons from a guy named. I can't remember.
Was the jazz too confining for what you'd seen ZZ Top do and what you'd heard Hendrix and Robin Trower do?
No, I didn't. When I first started playing guitar, it was just like just learning the chords and stuff, and but they were like they all had these chord melody styles, which I was like, how do you do that?
Yeah.
And stuff, and I was really into it, but I just kept going. I remember after about the second or third lesson with my first teacher, I had learned some Leonard Skinner licks or something like that, and I was over there goofing around, and he goes, "Oh, what's all that rock and roll you're playing?" But I just gravitated towards that. So then me and my friend in high school, I talked him into learning to play the bass.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So we'd have part of a band.
Right.
And so we used to jam all the time. And he had an older brother who had a huge record collection, and he's the one that turned us on to all the really cool stuff like the Allman Brothers and the B.B. King and the Elmer James and stuff like that. So we started learning that. I remember him and me sitting down trying to figure out Robert Johnson.
Really? Oh my God!
And I had no concept of open tuning.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So and then I
and what did Keith Richards say about that? He said, "I always wondered who was the other guy playing with him."
It drove me crazy for the longest time. And then I found a book by Arlen Roth.
Oh yeah.
It was slide guitar, and I bought it, and it had a little record in it that you could peel out, a little plastic record. And stuff, and then you tune the guitar different. And have YouTube back then.
I know. So I would imagine much of your learning was playing the record and then playing the record and trying it, and
just put it on and how do you do that?
Let me see if I can get it to sound like that.
I probably went through a few needles on the old
I'll
turntable.
bet.
But I got one of those. The thing that helped was that this is one of the first things I ever bought after I moved out on my own. I bought a turntable with a you know, you could adjust the speed a
Right.
little bit, so I could tune it to
down
my
a bit.
guitar.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That was my goal. I got to get one of those.
Right, right. Was there a time when you figured you cracked the code for the blues and some of these, you know, the Claptons or the Hendrixes?
I don't think I still have.
Okay. Yeah.
No, I mean,
I think after all 20 whatever.
Yeah, probably. There was actually.
Early on.
Yeah, I bought these, like, I got this B.B. King From the Beginning album, it was called. I bought it at the Kmart or whatever.
Yeah.
And then he had all this, you know, kind of big band blues stuff on it. And so I played with the Spokane Jazz Orchestra. So, you know, we did a lot of horn stuff. And so kind of like, I can relate to that. And then I bought, you know, like some Otis Rush records and stuff, and then it was like I just listen to play along with it over and over and over and over and over again, and so those, you know, once I started doing that, I, you know, and then I felt like I was, you know, I can do this, you know?
Yeah.
And but then the other thing that really like opened my eyes to, like, you know, was I saw the Robert Cray band.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so they were just, you know, they're still doing the bar circuit.
Yeah.
And I was in college, and we're rehearsing with the jazz orchestra at the college, and the bass player is older than me, and he came up to me, he goes, you know, you like blues, right? And I go, yeah. And he goes, well, you got to go see this band, you know. But I wasn't old enough to get into the bar yet.
Right.
I had this fake ID. I don't even know where I got it now, but it was funny because the guy's name was Irvin Pills, I remember. Yeah. And he had a beard and stuff, but I didn't have hair on my face. I was like, I took it to the door, and I handed it to the guy, and he just looked at me and he goes, in. He just waved me in. I was like, come in. Yeah. And then they started playing, and I was just like hooked. I'd go see him every night I could. Wow. They came through my hometown, Spokane, a lot. Yeah. And they're, you know, and then I got to know them and stuff, and they were always really nice to me. And then later on, they let my band open for them.
Oh, wow, what a treat. Yeah. So, well, you grew up in Spokane, but you're really tied into that Northwest, Pacific Northwest, between Spokane and Seattle and Portland, Oregon. What's that scene for people who are not familiar with it? I have so many musical friends from up there. What's that scene been like?
Oh, it's a good scene. There's lots of great musicians up there. You know, there's, you know, I mean, Will Curtis and Robert, they were, you know, both in the Cray band. But then there's Paul DeLay's band.
That's right. That's right.
You know, guitar player. Peter Damon was his guitar player, and Lloyd Jones. Duffy Bishop, I just thought of that
name. She was on that Burnside label, one of the first.
Duffy and Chris.
And I know now you've got Jimmy Botts up there.
Jimmy Bott.
Karen Lovely, that
Henry
whole Lisa
Cooper.
Mann.
Well, and Isaac Scott was in Seattle, and
is it a good area for a touring musician, for a musician to tour locally, you know, between the two states, Oregon, Washington?
It was when I started touring. I was in a rockabilly band called the Studebakers before that, and so I'd kind of been doing Seattle and Portland and Spokane, and, you know, wherever else we could find a gig. When I started Too Slim and the Taildraggers in 1986, I wanted to be a blues band, and I wanted to be an original blues band, and so we just started trying to do original material right off the bat, and then we spice it in with covers. But it was, and then I was, you know, booking the band myself, and so I book any play. We played every little town. And that whole
sounds like a B.B. King
at one time or another.
Because
we, you know, I just like, there's got to be a club there we can play at.
Right, that's cool. We got to ask the name. I mean, I know what the Taildraggers, but can you explain to the viewers where the name Too Slim and the Taildraggers comes from?
Well, I had that nickname Too Slim and the Studebakers. Because I was in a country band called the Hombres too. So at one point, when I was before had this Studebakers, I was playing with the Spokane Jazz Orchestra, and then I played on the weekends with this country band called the Hombres. And then I was working as a bellhop at the Red Lion Motor Inn there, and the GM called me in because he knew I was a musician. He said, "Hey, we want to do a 50s night on Sunday, and I hear you're a musician, and want to get a band together." And I'm like, "Sure." Yeah. So I got some of my college buddies together, and we had a band, and they wanted you to play a specific playlist.
Okay,
They had their little song list. You do, pick from these songs.
Right.
And I just couldn't resist cheating, so I started putting in blues songs and stuff, and even
I love it.
Like songs by the Fabulous Thunderbirds even and stuff. And I remember they called me in one time, and they started asking me like about my song list. I'm like, I had to, tell him, well, that's an old song, that I think it was a hit. Yeah. Whatever. But anyways, that Studebakers evolved into kind of a punk rockabilly band, and then when I started Too Slim, I was like, I want to do blues. The Taildragger parts, obviously, we got from the Howlin' Wolf tune. I'm a Taildragger.
Sure. Yeah.
And so when we were trying to think of a name for the band, a friend of mine from Spokane, Gary Yeoman, we were rehearsing, and he's like, "Well, we're gonna call the band," and he lived with my bass player, and he goes, "You ought to call it the Taildraggers." Yeah. And then they go, you actually call it Too Slim and the Taildraggers. I didn't want to call it Too Slim and the Taildraggers, and they talked me into it. So then that stuck.
Yeah. You can't change midstream.
Yeah.
Well, now this band, and I know most of your recordings, you pretty much use the trio format for the most part. What's the advantage for you as a guitar player to front a trio?
Well, I did it out of economics, for one thing. When I first started Too Slim and the Taildraggers, I started out as a trio, because the Studebakers was a trio with like 3 singers.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of used to playing like that. And it was hard to find, musicians that, I could, like relate to or whatever. There wasn't that many blues players and stuff around, in Spokane at the time. And but I just thought it was a challenge too, So I thought, wow, And I always liked, all my favorite bands were trios.
Right.
So that's what I just wanted it to be like a power trio.
Yeah. Does that power trio give you a lot of freedom?
It does. Yeah.
And what are the restrictions?
Well, when you start making records and you start thinking, I'm going to put all these guitar parts on.
And then you get out on the road.
Yeah. I used to do that. I think on our earlier records, I'd layer,
Right.
I need to put all these guitar parts on there. And then I started thinking, well, probably now I hardly put any other, the last bunch, maybe 5, 6 albums. So I probably try to make it as trio as possible.
Right.
So I don't have to try to figure out the parts. You know?
Yeah.
So it'd be like you'd write a song and then you'd record it. And then I had to figure out what to leave out and make it sound like good. Some songs it didn't work.
That I'm always amazed that the front man like yourself, that you're up there singing, you've got the guitar that you're adding to the vocals, and at the same time you're listening to your rhythm section because you've got to hear where they're going and how they're pushing you, right?
Exactly.
I mean, the compartmentalization that must happen up here, and then you've got to be watching the audience and responding to them.
Yeah, it was a definite learning experience. I threw myself right into the fire because I wasn't the singer in the Studebakers. We were a trio, and then we had a lead singer, I was terrified to sing when I first started the band, and I never had really sang lead vocals. But and I certainly didn't have this kind of voice that was. Like
Curtis Salgado or Robert Cray.
I didn't have that kind of voice. I had that Bob Dylan kind of voice. I just did the best I could.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I know you write a lot of your songs, you know, on every album. You're kind of a blues band, you're a blues rock band, you're a rock and roll band. How do you keep the grounded in tradition without letting it become confined?
Well, I just like try to, you know, not think of, you know, in the box thing. I'll try to think outside the box a little bit. And I do a lot of my inspiration is probably, you know, it's the blues stuff is like always there.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
from, you know, when I was learning how to play guitar, and it's the stuff that I really like love. You know, like when I'm just sitting around listening to music, I got to put on some Lightning Hopkins records or something like that.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And I just would listen to that as I go to sleep every night, you know, forever and stuff. And it kind of was ingrained into me. So it's always the blues stuff is in there.
Yeah.
And then I like rock and stuff, and then, you know, I like jazz. I've done some, you know, I used to do one instrumental on, you know, all my records, or most of them have at least one instrumental on them, and they're anywhere from like a, you know, Lenny Burrell type of thing, or to the Ventures, or, you know, surf rock or psychobilly rock or whatever. But so I just try to just put all those things in there, and when I write songs, I don't, you know, they just come from different things. I get you know, I goof around on my guitar and I hit the recorder and I record riffs, or I write down little, you know, snippets, or hear something somebody says.
Yeah. Yep.
And sometimes it's you know, you come up with the guitar stuff first, or it inspires you to, you know, particular lyric, whatever pops in your head.
Right.
Or you know, vice versa.
Yeah. I guess you sort of walk a tightrope in that you don't want it to be 100% traditional, where people say, oh, he's just rehashing what's already been done. On the other hand, you don't want it to be, you know, too futuristic, where people go, where is he going, you know?
Right.
Yeah,
right.
I see.
And it's hard. I mean, it's hard to, you know, it's hard to just try to, I just wanted to sound like myself.
Right. Yeah.
Because all the guys that I liked, all the bands I liked, I remember, you know, when I was a kid, and you'd buy a record, you didn't go, oh, I'm going to buy a blues record. You bought an artist.
Yeah.
And so, like, if you liked a band, I never really thought about, well, you know, they're a rock band or a blues band or something like that. I just liked the band.
Yep, that's right.
But I think, you know, to sell records, and, you know, they started getting classifications as the 80s and the 90s went by. You know, it's like all alternative blues, rock, you know, whatever.
Prog rock.
Yeah, it's like, and it's like you look at the thing and, you know, what's alt techno?
Yeah, I know.
You know.
Yeah.
I don't even pay attention to that.
Right, I know. Well,
people ask, you know, like, oh, I get it all the time, because people ask me, like, well, what do you call your, you know, the music? You guys call it blues rock, but
I think it's more than just blues rock, because blues rock puts a certain label on it, you know.
Yeah.
I liked your acoustic album a lot.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Well, I was way into acoustic music too, because I'm a huge Neil Young fan.
Yeah.
And I, you know, the old Lightning Hopkins stuff. And
P.S. I love that song, Three Chords. Oh,
man.
Let three chords take you someplace. Oh man, that is a good song.
I wrote that song in Hawaii on vacation.
Good. Well, this has been great, Tim.
Yeah.
Have a great show tonight. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, tonight's show, Too Slim and the Taildraggers.